You're the leader in a relationship only as long as she believes in your mission. Lose direction. Lose her. Jocko Willink. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. You can live with a woman for years and still feel like a stranger in your own home. And the worst part is, you end up blaming yourself for not being enough, not kind enough, not attentive enough, not strong enough, not soft enough. You think something is wrong with you. You try to fix it. You read the books. You try to listen. You make an effort to understand. But no matter what you do, something still feels broken. And no one tells you the truth, that you're not broken. You're just exhausted from wearing a mask that was never yours to begin with. They taught you how to be a man that women supposedly want. But no one ever showed you how to be a man who actually feels like himself. So now you find yourself constantly walking on emotional eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing, afraid to upset her, afraid to be real. You feel punished for being honest, for expressing what you really feel. And every time it happens, a part of you dies a little more. It's like no matter what you do, it's never enough. You give and still feel unseen, still feel unknown, still feel alone. And the deeper truth is, you're not alone in that. The problem is not you. The problem is the script you were handed. One that was built on lies. Lies that came from wounded fathers, silent mothers, broken systems, shallow culture, and even therapists who never faced their own shadows. Lies that taught you to be useful, agreeable, compliant, but never honest. Lies that told you your anger is dangerous, your desire is shameful, and your needs don't matter. So now you're stuck in an emotional prison, built out of good intentions and invisible betrayal. You want to be gentle, but you feel rage. You want to be strong, but you feel hollow. You want to connect, but you don't feel safe. No one warned you that trying to be safe for her could make you dangerous to yourself. Because when you betray your own truth in the name of peace, you don't just lose her, you lose yourself. And that's the real pain, not the rejection, not the conflict, but the slow, silent death of your authenticity. That's what hurts the most. And here's the part most people are afraid to say out loud. Most women don't want a man who pleases them. They want a man they can feel, a man whose presence is undeniable, a man who's not performing. Because she can feel when you're hiding, she can feel when you're suppressing, she can feel when you're pretending to be okay. It's not your darkness that confuses her, it's your performance. She's not afraid of your shadow, she's afraid that you don't even know it exists. And if these words hit something raw inside you, stay, because we're about to go even deeper. You've been taught that being a good man means keeping the peace, making her happy, being supportive, present, soft, understanding. You've been taught that your job is to regulate her emotions while hiding your own, that your value depends on how much discomfort you can absorb without reacting. And so you became a container for everything, her stress, her pain, her moods, while your own truth quietly died inside. You started apologizing for things you didn't even do. You swallowed your frustration, your anger, your instincts, until one day you didn't even recognize yourself anymore. And the more you gave, the more invisible you felt. The more you tried to make her feel safe, the less you felt like a man. And here's the painful paradox. The very things you were told would make her love you, being agreeable, always accommodating, never challenging, are the things that make her lose respect. Not because she's cruel, but because she can feel when you've abandoned yourself. And no one wants to connect with someone who's hollow inside, even if that hollowness is polite and attentive. She wants to feel your edges. She wants to know where you stand. She needs to know that when life pushes, you don't collapse. And none of that comes from being nice. It comes from being rooted in who you are, even if that truth is messy, even if it's not what she wants to hear. The lie that's been sold to men is this: if you just do everything right, you'll be loved. If you show up perfectly, she'll never leave. If you become everything she needs, she'll finally see you. But that story is poison. It turns you into a servant instead of a partner. It makes you abandon your own needs, your own voice, your own soul, in the name of earning love. And real love can't be earned by self-abandonment. Real love demands presence, honesty, boundaries, depth. And when you show up with that, not performance, but presence, everything changes. Here's the truth. Most psychologists won't tell you. A woman will test you, not because she's manipulative, but because she wants to feel your center. She wants to feel the strength in your no, just as much as in your yes. She needs to know that your love isn't coming from fear, that you're not afraid of her emotions, her chaos, her intensity, that you can meet her storm without shrinking. And the only way to do that is to stop hiding your own chaos, to stop suppressing your own fire, to stop pretending you don't feel what you feel. Because when you repress your shadow, you become passive-aggressive, resentful, emotionally unavailable. You turn into a ghost that's always there, but never really here. You've been doing everything right. You've been trying your best, and yet it still feels wrong. Still feels like something is missing. That missing piece is you. Not the version of you that learned how to survive. The real you, buried under years of shame, silence, and fear. And until you meet that version of yourself, nothing will change. You'll keep attracting the same dynamics. You'll keep replaying the same scripts. You'll keep feeling like love is just out of reach. But it's not. It's not out of reach. It's buried inside the parts of you you've been taught to reject. And if you're still here, if you're still listening, then something inside you already knows this. Something in you is done performing. Something in you is ready to remember who you are. The most painful moment in a man's life is not when he's rejected by a woman. It's when he realizes he's rejected himself so many times that he no longer knows what he feels. He spent so long trying to be chosen, trying to be enough, trying to earn love by managing emotions that were never his responsibility, that he's lost all connection to his own center. That disconnection becomes a silent ache, not loud, not dramatic, just a constant sense that something is missing. And it is. What's missing is your own presence, your own truth, your own grounded, unapologetic, "This is who I am." You were trained to trade your truth for approval, and maybe it worked on the surface. Maybe she stayed. Maybe things looked good, but underneath, something died. Because no matter how much love you think you're getting, if it requires you to abandon your essence, it will never feel real. That's the wound most men carry silently. Not the wound of not being loved, but the wound of being loved only when they betray themselves. So you start hiding, first from her, then from yourself. You smile when you're hurt. You say, "It's fine," when it's not. You try to be the calm one, the steady one, the one who holds everything together. And all the while, your body is screaming the truth you're afraid to say. There's something even more painful than loneliness, and that's self-abandonment. Being in a relationship where you can't be real. Waking up every day next to someone who doesn't actually see you. Not because they don't want to, but because you never showed them. You showed them the mask, the character, the man you thought you were supposed to be, and maybe it worked for a while. But masks have a cost. Every time you lie to yourself to keep the peace, you pay for it with your aliveness. Every time you swallow your truth to avoid conflict, you chip away at your integrity. Every time you become who she wants, instead of who you are, you disappear just a little more. The tragedy is that you were taught to do this by people who did the same. Fathers who never cried. Mothers who punished truth. Systems that told boys they must always be strong and silent. Therapies that pathologized masculinity instead of helping you integrate it. And so you grew up believing that softness is the goal. That being emotionally available means erasing your own edges. That conflict is failure, and clarity is aggression. But none of that is true. Emotional availability doesn't mean self-erasure. True strength is not in suppressing your fire, but in knowing how to hold it without burning everything down. And clarity isn't aggression. Clarity is the doorway to intimacy. Because here's the deeper truth. Your partner is not looking for perfection. She's looking for a mirror that doesn't distort. Someone who can stand in their truth without needing her to agree, approve, or affirm it. She's looking for depth, not control. She wants to feel your solidity, your weight, your no, as much as your yes. And she can't feel any of that if you're busy trying to protect her from who you really are. If you're still performing, if you're still hiding, and the moment you stop hiding, the whole dynamic shifts. It doesn't mean it gets easier, but it gets real. And real is the only thing that will ever feel like love. Most men believe that if they could just figure out the right thing to say, the right way to behave, the right formula to avoid conflict, they'd finally have peace. But real peace doesn't come from avoiding her reactions. It comes from not abandoning yourself in the face of them. That's the shift. Not in controlling her emotions, but in being anchored in yours. Because until you stop fearing her intensity, you'll keep bending, pleasing, suppressing, and eventually resenting. And resentment is the slow poison that kills connection. Not because you're bad, but because you've made her the center of your emotional life while leaving your own needs unmet, unspoken, unseen. She doesn't want that burden. She may not say it, but she can feel it. When you make her approval your compass, you place your sense of worth in her hands. And that's not love. That's dependence. That's emotional outsourcing. And it creates a subtle pressure she can't name, but deeply resents. Because a woman doesn't want to mother a man. She wants to meet one. She wants to feel that your ground is yours, that you won't collapse just because she's angry or upset or scared, that you can stay with her, but not lose yourself in her, that your presence isn't conditional on her behavior. If you've ever wondered why things fall apart, even when you do everything right, this is why. Because you've been giving her the version of you shaped by fear, not truth. And truth is what creates attraction. Truth is what creates depth. It's not about dominance. It's not about control. It's about alignment with your own values, your own emotions, your own boundaries. And the moment you start showing up from that place, everything changes. Some relationships will end. Some will transform. But most importantly, you'll stop betraying yourself to keep something that was never built on who you really are. Most psychologists won't tell you this, but almost every dynamic you experience in relationships is rooted in the unconscious. You're not just reacting to her words or tone. You're reacting to childhood memories, buried emotions, unresolved wounds. And she is too. Most fights aren't really about the dishes, the tone, the text that wasn't answered. They're about invisible stories both of you carry. Stories of abandonment, rejection, shame. And unless you bring those into the light, You'll keep repeating the same arguments, just with different faces. That's not because you're broken. It's because the unconscious always looks for healing through repetition. It recreates the wound in the hope that this time you'll face it. But here's the paradox. Healing doesn't come by fixing her or even fixing yourself. It comes by seeing, by noticing the pattern without trying to escape it, by saying, "This is what I do when I feel unseen. This is how I collapse when I'm scared. This is the moment I stop being honest because I'm afraid of conflict." That kind of awareness doesn't feel powerful, but it is, because the moment you name the shadow, it loses control over you. You don't have to act it out. You don't have to run. You can stay. You can breathe. You can respond instead of react. And she'll feel that. She'll feel when you're no longer triggered into performance, when you're no longer fighting for control or begging for approval. She may not say it. She may even resist it at first. But somewhere deeper, something shifts. Because now, she's not talking to your wounded inner boy. She's standing in front of a man who sees himself clearly and chooses truth over comfort. There's a moment in every man's journey when he realizes that no amount of strategy, charm, empathy, or patience will ever make him feel whole. Because wholeness isn't something you earn from others. It's something you reclaim from within. And that moment usually comes not in triumph, but in collapse. When trying harder stops working. When the mask becomes unbearable. When even the illusion of connection starts to feel like suffocation. That's the point most men either break or wake up. And if you're here, still listening, then maybe something in you is ready to wake up. Not into some better version of yourself, not into perfection, but into presence, into the kind of grounded honesty that can finally breathe without asking for permission. The shadow is not your enemy. It's every part of you that was told, "You're too much, you're not enough. You shouldn't feel this, you shouldn't want that." It's your repressed anger, your buried grief, your silenced desire. And as long as you try to stay above it, you'll be controlled by it. Because what you suppress doesn't disappear. It distorts, it leaks, it sabotages, it shows up in passive aggression, in shutdowns, in over-explaining, in always trying to fix. The only way to stop being controlled by your shadow is to face it, name it, own it. Not to act it out blindly, but to integrate it consciously. That's how you become trustworthy, not by being harmless, but by being self-aware. When a man owns his shadow, something in him settles. He's no longer thrown off by her storms because he's met his own. He's no longer afraid of her truth because he's honest with his. He doesn't need to dominate or disappear. He can stay, speak clearly, set boundaries, feel fully, without apology. That presence changes everything. It changes how she looks at you. It changes how you look at yourself. And more importantly, it breaks the old contract, the one that said love means pleasing. Now love starts to look like truth, like clarity, like respect. And maybe for the first time, you start to feel what it's like to be with someone without losing yourself in them. This doesn't mean it gets easy. In fact, in the beginning, it gets harder, because every pattern that was built on avoidance starts to fall apart. The relationships that depended on your silence will resist your voice. The dynamics that fed on your guilt will push back against your clarity. But that's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're finally doing it real. And real always creates friction, because the old version of you, the one who stayed small, agreeable, scared, he'll try to come back. He'll whisper that you're being selfish, that you're hurting her, that you should go back to the way things were. But you can't. Not anymore. Because now you've seen what it costs to live a life disconnected from your own soul. And the price is too high. Real transformation doesn't happen in books. It happens in the body, in those silent, private moments where you finally stop negotiating with your pain and begin to feel it fully, not to fix it, not to explain it, but to let it speak. Because your body remembers everything you've suppressed. Every "I'm fine" that wasn't. Every moment you swallowed your truth to keep the peace. The tension in your chest. The tightness in your jaw. The heaviness in your gut. That's not weakness. That's your nervous system still holding on to things you never got to express. And if you want change, lasting grounded change, it starts by listening to what your body has been trying to say all these years. So here's where you begin. Today, not in theory, not in philosophy, but in practice. First, breath. Not the kind you do to calm down, but the kind you do to meet what's alive inside you. Sit still. Put a hand on your chest, one on your belly. Breathe without trying to fix anything. Just notice. Where do you feel tight? Where do you feel numb? What wants to move, but has been held back? Give it space. Let the discomfort come. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're learning how to stay with it without abandoning yourself again. Second, write. Not for performance, not for clarity, just for truth. Take a pen and write the words you're not supposed to say. To her, to yourself, to the version of you that still thinks love means disappearing. Let it be messy. Let it be angry. Let it be honest. You don't need grammar. You need realness. Burn the paper after if you have to, but give that voice a place to exist, because what you don't express will express itself through conflict, through avoidance, through pain. Third, boundaries. Not as rules you throw at others, but as commitments you make to yourself. Practice saying no without a 10-minute explanation. Practice sitting in someone's disappointment without rescuing them from it. Practice naming your need, even if it feels uncomfortable. That's not selfish. That's self-respect. And without that, no relationship, no matter how passionate, will ever feel safe. Because intimacy without boundaries isn't love, it's fusion. And fusion kills the very thing you're trying to build. Fourth, movement. Your body is not meant to stay frozen. The trauma you carry is not just emotional, it's physical. Go for a walk, punch a pillow, shake, stretch, scream in your car. Do whatever your nervous system needs to release what's been trapped inside. You don't have to understand it to move it. You just have to let it move. Because clarity comes after movement, not before it. And finally, community. Not a group of people who tell you what to do, but a space where truth is allowed, where masks come off, where the goal isn't to be healed, but to be real. If you're ready for that, start here. If you've recognized yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I'm done running from my pain." Let's see how many of us are truly ready for truth. And if you feel that now is the time to stop hiding, to meet your shadow, and to build something real from that place, write, "My darkness is my power." Let's build a space where we stop pretending and start living. And if you're ready to stop playing roles, write, "I take off the mask." Let's find out who's really here for a life that doesn't require performing. If this video stirred something in you, write, "I accept my shadow." Not as a final destination, but as a promise to yourself. This is not the end. It's only the beginning. Because now, you're awake. And from here, everything can change. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.